17th of March is the start of the new week. Hope you all had a very great weekend, everyone. I'm Bosin Namafai. This is just walking you through how the markets finished off on Friday as we get into this very important week. There's quite a whole lot to digest this week as we start the day with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, right now holding the first day of a major meetings of the Africa's finance ministers in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital. But look at the markets as we got a whole lot to touch on this week. South Africa's central bank, the Reserve Bank, would also be deciding on its next interest rate later in the week. That's on the 20th. But Friday, the Nigerian market was down by 0.25%. The BRVM was stronger by 0.35%. The Egyptian 30 index, the EGX 30, started the week on Sunday in Cairo with 15 basis points, taking the index slightly above the 31,000 reading. The Nairobi fell roughly 0.5% on Friday, and the South African GSE, despite nearly 1% upside, failed to cross back into that psychological reading of 88,000 on its all-share index. That's just a bit of a look back for you. We've got quite a lot of earnings to digest from last week, and it's still coming through for full year 2024, different periods that companies listed on the many exchanges on the African continent are reporting. So let's get started, as always, with the East and Central Africa, with the Kenya Pipeline Company reporting its full year ended February revenue about 35.5 billion shillings. Gross profit was reported about 20 billion Kenyan shilling, and the net profit about 6.8 billion in local currency there. In the meantime, Stanbic Bank of Kenya is looking at 12 billion shillings in advanced loans with new credit score model after reporting its full year 2024 numbers and giving a bit of an outlook into what 2025 will look like. In other corporate news, MTN Rwanda posted 5.5 billion Rwandan francs loss for its full year 2024. That's no good news for the telco giant that's listed on the Rwanda Stock Exchange, one of the largest, most capitalized company on that exchange. And you have the Kenya Treasury says it's delaying the tender automation again. July will now be the new date for the rollout of the automation process for government public procurement and the tendering that President Ruto is looking to onboard. And the Congo's state mining company in arbitration has been ordered to pay about roughly 40 million euros to Australia's AVC mining company. The whole front and back was about that dispute between the Congo State Mining Corporation, Australia's AVZ, as well as a Chinese company. Now, International Arbitration has asked the mining company of DR Congo to pay that amount to the Australian AVC, and they can now go back on ground and continue the project at the lithium site in Congo. And one big news that came in through the weekend, I'm sure by now you should have it, was the AFDB, the African Development Bank, is working with the Ethiopian airline. They signed the agreement late last week to build what will likely become the largest airport on the African continent. That will be roughly $8 billion US, and that will be located in Ethiopia. It's going to beat the existing Bole Airport in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, as well as the Oliver Tambo Airport in Johannesburg, South Africa. Congratulations to both parties. Let's bring it on. I'm touching into West Africa, and we're starting with a couple of news out of Nigeria. Vertiva Capital, one of the investment banking and securities firm, announced late last week that he's floating a new US dollar bond. You can check that out. While Stanbic IBTC says his 50 billion naira commercial paper will open or will close today. It's about two tranches. There's a first closure today and the second one on Wednesday. And the minority shareholders of PZ Cussons Nigeria, that big HCP companies, have rejected plans by the company to convert about 35 million US dollars loan from the parent company to equity in the Nigerian unit of the business. And Ghana International Bank and the British International Investment International, the BII, is in a new $50 million deal to boost trade between Ghana and the United Kingdom, part of what the BII is doing across the continent. In Cameroon, Nigeria's neighbor to the east, cocoa production is expected to rise 6.7% in 2025. That's according to Fitch agency. And Liberia says it's revamping cargo tracking deal to boost the country's revenue and cut the costs of trade for the small West African economy. We're taking that to Southern Africa. And I mentioned earlier, the SARB under Leseja Kediango and the rest of his six-member MPC will be deciding on the 28th of this month. On Thursday, the next interest rate decision is going to be the second time this year that the SARB is deciding. This decision is coming just about a few weeks, just about 2 weeks after the budget for the South African Government of National Unity was presented. Actually, that's just about a week ago or so. That budget is still being discussed. Folks says this should go into action very quickly. It's about 150 billion US dollars in size. The naughty part of that budget of Enoch Godongwana, who's the head of the Ministry of Finance, has to do with tax and infrastructure spending by the South African government. But no good news for Mozambique, because tropical cyclone Jude has stopped Mozambique's coal railway business, as well as cutting off some highways in the country. That's the news. ArcelorMittal in South Africa is looking at $170 million. That's in dollar terms a lifeline to save some of his steel mining operations in the country. And Fitch says South Africa will have to struggle, Ramaphosa's administration, that is, to stabilize debt, as outlined in the new national budget presented just about a week or so ago by the finance minister. India and Mauritius on the island of the Indian Ocean says they have a new deal for direct currency trade between the countries. Sounds a bit like Nigeria's currency swap with the Chinese renminbi. And Malawi's Mzuzu Airport is going for a rehabilitation. That's about 100,000 US dollars, and that's coming from Japan. Thank you for that support. And Botswana is looking at about 1.5 gigawatts of solar power to speed up the country's transition into green energy. Let's wrap it up in North Africa. Just got Egypt and Scartech are exploring future investments in green energy. Everyone's going green these days, and that's some good news for the continent that has an abundant resources that could help the continent scale up on its green energy sustainability. CIH Bank of Morocco says it's 24.3% was the growth in profit for the financial year, and crosses 100 billion dinar in local currency as the credit mark for the iconic lender listed on the Casablanca Stock Exchange. Morocco's manufacturing, however, output was 5%, reported 5% growth for the final quarter of last year. And finally, Libya says it's in talks with ConocoPhillips over oil exploration in the North African economy, that is Libya. Those are your headlines this Monday. It's the start of the week. Do have a profitable week, everyone. And keep your eyes here on Frontier Opening Bell. And of course, go on our social media. You can also follow us and add your comments and watch our videos on our YouTube as well. Bye for now. Have a great day.